Thank you for joining. Welcome to February's webinar. Appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to join us today. Exciting subject about the science behind how anti-fatigue mats reduce fatigue. Certainly don't claim to be an expert in the topic, but I love to learn and have learned a lot from putting this presentation together, and no doubt learn a lot from the interaction and the questions as we go through the day as well. So it'll be a quick session. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started on the presentation. So thanks again for joining. My name is Russell Herbert, account manager here at Acromat, and I have the privilege of being joined today by Alice Rector. Alice is an athletic trainer by license and trade. She was a high school athletic trainer for 12 years before switching to more non-traditional settings, including joining ATI, Worksite Solutions, and contracting with Allegiant. So she's worked in a number of different fields, including chiropractic, office, home exercise programs, manual therapy, doctor's office, and also launched sports medicine programs. So appreciate Alice joining us today and look forward to her insights. Just as a heads up before we get started, she did have an unexpected family emergency come up today, but she did say she'll still be able to join for some of those questions as we get going. So appreciate that. So with that, we're going to jump right into the agenda for the session today. As always, recording of the webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube channel and shared after the webinar as well. So along with a few additional resources that will hopefully help you and your teams. After talking through a few slides, I'll bring Alice on for a Q&A about her role and the importance of proactive ergonomic and MSD education, and how she's seen anti-fatigue mats support the team there at Allegiant. Also talk to her a little bit about the value of standardizing the company's approach to ergonomic matting as well. So we'll finish with a Q&A. So as always, as we go along, feel free to write in your questions into the Q&A chat, and we'll get to those at the end. And then after the webinar, you will receive a gift selection form as a thank you for joining us today. So with that, we'll jump right into the content. So MSDs, big topic. As the aging manufacturing workforce is getting more difficult to replace, I'm sure we'd all agree with that. And the workforce, the workers there are experiencing the effects of years of physical labor. According to OSHA, as you can see here on the screen, work-related MSDs are the most frequently reported causes of lost work time. So that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. There's a number of common MSDs in manufacturing, certainly doesn't cover all of them, but some of the ones that we hear more often, just a couple that jump out at me there, but the neck and back pain, sciatic nerve issues, the plantar fasciitis, those type of things can be common MSD type injuries in manufacturing. So we'll talk about that, and then more importantly, and the good news, I guess, is that work-related MSDs can be prevented. So one of the important solutions to that is proactivity. When somebody complains about a pain or has an injury, at that point, it can be too late to reverse what's already done. So if we can start thinking about being proactive in preventing these things from coming up, that's the best way to tackle these issues. So according to NIOSH, MSDs and the work environment are directly connected. So your work environments are either helping or hurting when it comes to MSD injuries. So there's a few ways, and I guess that's one of the benefits we have. We talk to a lot of safety managers in the work that we do, and so we're able to pull together a list of ideas of what safety managers are doing and other people in health and safety, how they're working to prevent MSDs. So as you can see here, things like workplace policies, mandatory breaks, safety training, rotating shifts, those are all great proactive measures to take to help prevent those injuries. equipment and machinery, rolling carts, conveyor belts, then preventative care, benefit plans, checkups, chiropractic care, and then lastly, the actual work environment improvements themselves, and obviously the ergonomic improvements that can be made, including anti-fatigue matting. So some of the companies we work with do stretching routines prior to their shift, which is another proactive measure to help with, and or they partner with companies like Alice, the ATI Worksite Solutions, that can help with those proactive improvements as well. So all of these efforts are built around that idea of proactivity and prevention, teaching the workforce what's available to them and what they can do to prevent an injury from coming up. So in just a moment, I'm going to bring Alice on to share some of the solutions that she recommends and has seen work for her as well. So in the last slide, the last bullet point there was about the work environment improvements, particularly anti-fatigue mats. So before we get into the role that they play in preventing MSDs and overall safety, just wanted to quickly touch on this whole idea of the definition of anti-fatigue. What does it mean? What does it not mean? As a supplier of anti-fatigue mats, we get this question a lot. What does anti-fatigue really mean? Well, one of the things it doesn't mean is just feeling tired from a lack of sleep. It's not about that sort of lag you get when you need an extra cup of coffee or something like that. What we're talking about when we're talking about anti-fatigue mats is reducing the physical fatigue and injuries that can develop over standing for long periods of time on hard surface. So it's more of a long-term idea, more of a long-term solution that's going to help be proactive towards that health and safety and productivity. So we're not talking about just being tired for the day. We're talking about the longer-term impact of that physical work on a hard surface. So we're going to touch on a couple of ways that anti-fatigue mats reduce fatigue and elevate health. Firstly, they reduce joint impact. So one of the things I wanted to touch on this slide is that mats alone aren't enough. There's a couple of things to be mindful of in the mat selection process as well that is going to be important. So as we know, long hours on hard surfaces will cause some of those MSD issues and slow your workflow down. Premium anti-fatigue mats, on the other hand, can help compensate from some of those issues. So two most important components when it comes to the anti-fatigue mats themselves is the mat quality. So as you can see here, premium anti-fatigue mats that have a nitrile or NBR rubber foam that has a high quality mat product is going to help with those ergonomic benefits. Something that's not going to compress over time, obviously a mat that's compressed and flat is not really adding any benefit. Something that's stable, but yet provides that cushioned surface and eases the pressure on the joints. So those are the two components. Number one is the quality of the mat itself, making sure it actually does provide adequate ergonomic benefit. And then second is the right shape and size of the mat. So that's another important one that can often get overlooked. So what you want to make sure as you're designing the mats for your work cell is that they actually cover where people are spending the majority of their time. An employee that's frequently on and off a mat or having to cross, multiple mats or something like that, that can almost be worse for the employee because of the constant ergonomic adjustments they face as having to go on and off of those. So something to consider is not only the material that's being used, but the shape and size of the layout that you're working with as well. Second point here is anti-fatigue mats improve circulation. So I once remember being told by somebody who's worked in ergonomics a long time that the best position to be in is the next one. And what that really tells us is about promoting movement, keeping keeping working, keeping moving. We don't get stagnant and bogged down in just one particular position. We're always having that movement. What that does, improve circulation. When your muscles are active, promotes that blood flow. And then the anti-fatigue cushioning, that's what it's for. It's designed to encourage movement and a change in posture. So I'm actually standing on one now, and you can see that what they're doing is they're promoting that movement instead of just being stagnant in one position. So a lot of benefits, as you can see from the slides here, to do with the circulation, and that's a key point in reducing the joint impact, is to improve that circulation to help prevent those MSD risks from occurring. So whilst we can talk about the science behind the anti-fatigue mats and the mat materials themselves, we can talk about that for a long time, I guess. But the best feedback really comes from the employees themselves, and we see this all day long in the work we do with manufacturers. And just as an example, we recently had the opportunity to visit a global smart window manufacturer who had installed some new custom acromats, and we just were able to walk around and hear from the employees themselves how they had been performing compared to what they had previously. And so these are a few comments that we were able to get from those employees. So there's really three things here that we wanted to highlight, but that all kind of come together to support the bottom line. That is absenteeism. As you can see, these were direct quotes that we received. My back used to hurt when I went home. It doesn't anymore. My whole body just feels better. And this is after, only a week or so of having the new mats in. The next one, productivity, and this was a quote from the safety director himself, but happy employees are productive employees. So that's a great benefit from having a good ergo mat solution. And then lastly, employee turnover. So this was an employee that had been on the mats. He says, before we had these mats, at the end of my 8 hours, I just felt pain. So you can see the difference that we get just by talking to the employees. And those are really ways that you can get confirmation that what you're doing is working, is by actually walking around and talking to the employees, being proactive in having those discussions. We also reached out whilst we were preparing this to a couple of ergonomists that I've had the privilege of working with over a number of years, just to get some of their insights into their thoughts on anti-fatigue mats and how they help with this subject. So Mary Plehal from On-Site Solutions, she says, quality anti-fatigue mats are a significant factor in overall workday tolerance and fatigue reduction. This is more important now than ever, with many employers having hiring challenges. They often turn to the use of extended shifts, 10 to 12 hours in duration. I coach employers to intelligently deploy key strategies to reduce likelihood of unintended negative consequences of extended shifts. One of these strategies is to ensure that standing surfaces have good anti-fatigue properties. Acromat is my recommended source. So as you can see, kind of ties in what we've talked about there as to, the aging workforce, the need for those extended shifts, and trying to be proactive in having some strategies that are going to prevent those issues from coming up. And then the next one here is from Jane Whalen Price from JWP Physical. And she says, our process for addressing effective anti-fatigue mats began as a formal assessment of employee complaints of leg and back pain in specific areas of our plant. The initiative was driven by senior leadership who recognized that people are the key to the success of the product. We researched and trialed various mats, and we're looking for a consistent solution to address timing of replacements and pricing for anti-fatigue mats. We trialed two specific densities, one soft model and one firm model. Back and leg complaints were effectively addressed with anti-fatigue mats and insoles, and Acromat was the selected provider. So again, you can see that proactive approach coming through in both of these messages, that it's about obviously getting buy-in from the senior leadership is important, but it's about having those discussions with the people on the floor. In this particular case, obviously addressing those complaints, doing some trial, doing some testing, and then you can see what kind of improvements can be made for the long term with that type of an approach. So thanks to Mary and Jane for their insights there. So next up, I'm going to bring Alice in for a quick Q&A. And as I said, she had an unexpected thing come up today, but hopefully she's able to at least give us a few thoughts here as well. So welcome,
Hello,
Alice.
Hello.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stop the screen share as well so we can go over a couple of questions with you.
Yes. All right.
So I guess we'll jump right into some questions, Alice, but can you just share a little bit about your role and how you support health and manufacturing?
Yeah, so I am a athletic trainer. I was a high school athletic trainer for 12 years, and then I kind of transitioned into working into a factory job where I'm at now. I work at a Legion, and my main job is to help promote musculoskeletal safety of our patients. And so whether that's ordering mats or seeing if we need to get some ergo tools so that they don't hurt themselves as much while they're doing repetitive tasks and that sort of thing. My biggest job that I do basically revolves around that.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So was there anything from the earlier presentation slides that you'd like to add to? I know you've talked a lot in the past about rotating shifts being one way that you help to reduce MSD risks, but was there anything else you'd like to kind of reinforce from that message?
One of the biggest things was that working with you, I was able to get mats that worked well in our different areas. What we primarily do at Allegion is we make, I guess, the parts for a door, but not the door itself. So think of handles, push bars, kick plates, that sort of thing. So we had some areas that are high fabrication that the traditional mats that I order for our assembly areas didn't work. And y'all were able to create a mat that allowed coolant to go through and that was cushioning enough that it was better than them standing on the concrete. And so they are very appreciative of those mats and actually just laid down some of those that we just got in last week. That type of stuff has been very, very helpful. So we're using the Nitro Tough and your traditional mats throughout our facilities, talking with our employees about how that we don't necessarily need to have everywhere matted, which was something that happened with our previous athletic trainer that worked there, and just educating them on what the point of having those ergo mats are.
That's very good. Yeah, that kind of leads into my next question for you, was just how important it is to be proactive in the safety and ergonomic education in your field. Is something you're quite passionate about, having those early discussions?
Yes. So we like to be more proactive than reactive, and getting the mats in the right areas and having the right kinds in the right areas is really crucial for making sure that I don't end up having people who come in with lower back pain and knee pain and ankle pains because they're standing in the same spots all day long. And so we have been phasing out some mats that were there previously that some of them were puzzle pieces. And so where the puzzle pieces kind of come together, their feet were standing. And so those parts would break down, but then the mats in the middle would still be good, but those would cause uneven surfaces for them to be on, which then was causing some issues. And so since we started replacing most of the mats throughout the facility in the last year or so, I've had a massive decrease in the amount of ergonomic type injuries that I have for the lower extremity and lower back from that.
That's very good. Yeah, that's kind of answers my next question, but just the role that you've seen anti-fatigue mats play really in elevating the health and safety, and particularly the one-piece design rather than having multiple mats, I guess.
Yes. So definitely I came, as I said, from like a high school setting. So this is a new territory for me. And so it was a little eye-opening when I first started doing it, and working with you guys has been very, very helpful in kind of helping me learn that. And like I said, there's a big education piece to people because they would love to be able to walk on a carpeted area. And then when we point out that our material handlers walk on cement back and forth all day long, and should we carpet the entire place, it kind of gives them kind of an eye opener of like, oh yeah, I am working in this one workstation. And yes, I do leave my workstation every 5 to 10 minutes, but I'm not constantly walking around and that sort of thing. So we've actually had a couple of areas for our material handlers where we've got some ESD, or the ones that are for static shock, that we discovered people were getting shocked in areas where they were putting stuff down, and getting those mats in those areas help reduce that static shock that they were getting. So again, just one of those that until you start having the conversation with your employees, you may not know that they're having some of those issues. And so just like I said, the one piece mats are significantly better than the puzzle piece mats. And it's been very helpful that my employees have also seen the big difference. Some of them were really wanting to hang on to those, and then they get the new ones. They're like, wow, this does make a heck of a difference, because I didn't realize how uneven I was standing.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for that.
Yep.
One more I just wanted to ask you about as well is, I know you've shared in previous conversations about the challenges from just maybe working with multiple mat styles or mat vendors. Can you just say something about your sort of standardized approach to the anti-fatigue matting and how that's been a benefit?
Yeah. So the lady before me, and I'm sure she was just kind of following suit with the previous people before her as well. They used 2 or 3 different mat vendors. And so when I first got there, again, brand new, something that I never used before. And so I had a workout sheet that had 3 different types of mats on it. And so I would ask you guys like, hey, by the way, do you have like a hog heaven mat or whatever? And you guys would be like, no, but here's what we have that's very similar to that, which was very, very helpful. But they were using, I believe it was 3 different vendors, and everybody in their different departments had different things and different things that they liked. And so I basically came in and said, you know, we're going to standardize this. We're going to have it so that it's the same throughout the plant, so that if people are switching from one area in assembly to another area in assembly, they're not going from one type of mat to another type of mat. And again, one of those that it took a little bit of buy-in from some of the people that have been there for 20 years or so. But having that standardized mat of having, this is what you're going to be standing on while you're in these assembly areas. This is what you're going to be standing on when you're in the fabrication areas. This is what you're going to be using if you're using in the tool room and that sort of thing, has been very, very well received. And it just makes life a lot easier that I'm not having to track down 3 different people to say, hey, where's my mats at? Or see like, where's my quote? Where's this and where's that? Which is what I kind of did for the first 3 months when I first started there over a year and a half ago. So again, like I said, it was one of those that having you to work with, and it's awesome. I can send you a million emails. I can send you sketches that I can't quite get the acro sketch to work with, and you're somehow amazingly able to make those angles work that I couldn't make work. Has been really, really helpful for me. And like I said, it's just nice to have one person to go through versus going through several different vendors, trying to appease different people when you can get the same quality mats from just one person.
Very good. No, thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it. I don't claim to be an expert on acro sketch, but I guess I have done a lot with it in the past. So
Yeah,
it's pretty
and
fun
I definitely
when you
like that
get
tool.
into it. Yeah. Good. No, thank you so much. I just wanted to mention for the audience too, but on the subject of standardization that Alice was just referring to, we did present on that on last month's webinar, just on some tips on how that can be done. So feel free to look at that on the YouTube channel. We have it as a recording on there as well. And if you need a copy, we can send that out too. So that's great. That's kind of all the questions I had. Was there any parting words you wanted to share, Alice, before we look at what there might be on Q&A?
Yeah, I guess I'm not necessarily, I am happy that I stumbled across Acromat. I've actually encouraged some of my ATI teammates throughout the country to take a look at them, especially if they were having some ergomat type things. We do have our own little like Q&A thing that we do once a month. And I know that Matt's came up one time and I highly recommended it. And I've had some good feedback on it. I had never worked with you guys before, and it was just one of those things that it worked out really, really well. And I highly recommend that if you haven't used Acromat, to give them a try, because they definitely have several different things, several different products that'll work for different areas in the facilities. I don't need clean room type stuff, but I know that they have that type of stuff as well. But for at least my facility, The mats have been really, really well received. And it's been one of those that has been kind of a blessing in disguise that I've been able to work with you guys and be able to get the turnaround quickly that I need.
Great. Thank you so much, Alice. And I guess I'd like to say as well that it's a great partnership. We enjoy working with you. And I think the proactive approach that you take to this whole subject is the key to the success of the whole program. So
For sure,
good.
for sure. Like I said, being proactive versus reactive is definitely helpful, and the mats have helped a lot for the lower back issues that we've had and some of the knee issues that people had complained about for years, and they just didn't realize that what they were comfortable with wasn't necessarily what was best for them.
Very good.
Yep.
All right, I'm just gonna pop the screen share back on, and we'll jump
right.
over to what we have here for any potential Q&A. So yeah, we'll close with that. Thanks again for Alice's input. Hopefully that's been helpful. Okay, this is a good question. Bradley asks, could you give a quick overview of areas a cheap anti-fatigue mat would fail in comparison to a premium mat? And I think that's a great question. Obviously, there's a lot of different environments, a lot of different applications out there, but a cheap anti-fatigue mat generally are going to be designed to be replaced in a short amount of time. So think like 6 months. So a basic PVC type foam mat may only have a life expectancy of about 6 months. What tends to happen is they don't get replaced when they should. 6 months comes around pretty quick, and people aren't usually quite ready to replace yet. They think they just got a new one. So it's lost the benefit of its anti-fatigue properties, and it's really not much different from just standing on cement. So that's one example I can share. Another example is a mat that may look intact from just a visual inspection, but the foam pad underneath has long since lost its cushion, and again is no longer providing that anti-fatigue support. So a premium mat is going to give you a good anti-fatigue experience through the life of the whole product, instead of having to be replaced on a regular basis. So hopefully that helps with that question. I know there's a lot of applications, so if there's a particular one that needs addressing, we can do that too. So Robert asks, do you make mats that can be used in clean rooms? Yes, we do. Alice just touched on that as well, and we have a clean room certificate up to a class 5, so the mats are safe to be used. That was independently certified for use in clean rooms as well. Roland asks, do you have standard mats for standing desks? We do a lot with standing desk mats. Our 101 series is our go-to for that. And depending on the size of the desk that you're trying to do, like a 2x2 or a 2x3 is usually sufficient. And those are standard sizes for us as well. So our 101 series is a best bet for you there for the standing desks. Robert asks for the AcroSketch information again. So that is acromat.com/acrosketch. There's some tools on there, some resources to help you get started. But if you'd like a session, feel free to book one up and I can run you through that as well. But we'll follow up with you, Robert, as well to make sure you got what you need. And then another question here from Robert as to colors. With the 101 series mat type, we have 4 different colors. We have black, gray, terracotta, and yellow. So those are the 4 color options that we have at present. So I think that's all we've got for questions so far. If there's anything else that we missed, feel free to send those in. And thank you very much for joining us today. Hopefully there's some actionable insights you can take away and put into practice as you support your teams. Just wanted to say a big thank you again for Alice for joining, even though she had the slight issue there, but really appreciate you coming on, Alice, and sharing your insights as well. So thank you to all. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.